Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to go over what is needed for Edarbi and Edarbyclor prior authorizations. For Edarbi and Edarbyclor prior authorizations, there's only one very important piece of information for the request, and that is the ARB statement. What ARBs have they tried in the past? These includes drugs such as losartan, valsartan, olmesartan. The rest of the drugs are very rarely asked for. The second most common group of drugs that are asked for are the ACE inhibitors, so these are drugs such as lisinopril being the most common. This is maybe asked for 1 in 50 authorizations. Usually there's a fairly good reason why someone is not currently on an ACE inhibitor, hence why it is rarely asked for. Other drugs are very, very infrequently asked for. It might be 1 in 500 or so requests. For the ARB statement, what we need to know is what ARBs have been tried and failed in the past, and some of the common ones are listed on the right-hand side: losartan, valsartan, telmisartan, olmesartan. What ARBs have they tried, so even if they haven't tried any, or if alternative ARBs would not be as effective. For example, if you believe that Edarbi or Edarbyclor would be needed because it would have a stronger blood pressure lowering effect or whatever it is that would cause it to not be as effective, then you would need to make that known. Or if you believe that the other ARBs would have adverse effects, this is probably not as common for Edarbi and Edarbyclor since they're in the same medication class, but if that is the case, then that is also what you would want to let us know. What they've tried, and if either one of the two things are also true, if they would not be as effective or if they would have adverse effects. Other documentation is very rarely worth including unless it just happens to be right there and it doesn't take you any extra time to send. So going through the list here, so the first one is a great example, the ACE inhibitor statement. So this includes drugs such as lisinopril. I'll add a link in the description if you want the full list of common alternatives. But this is maybe asked for 1 in 40 requests. And let's say you spent a minute looking it up, that's 40 minutes for one time it paying off. It would just make more sense for us to contact you back, even if it took 10 minutes to contact you back. It's just more time effective to ignore it, essentially. Now, the next one is almost never asked for ever. Only insurance companies that are really smart will ask for it. I'll give you a good example. So Express Scripts, Edarbi and Edarbyclor, at least this year, is not on the formulary. However, they will still ask you this question. And the reason is because it will save them a lot of money. In the grand scheme of things, this drug is not that expensive. And if it prevents one serious hospitalization or serious spending event, it's going to be cheaper to pay for the drug for the duration of the patent life than it would to have them go to hospital or have one of these more expensive events. So hospitalization risk might include if they are very recently hospitalized or if they're at very high risk for going to the hospital because of coronary problems or very uncontrolled hypertension, for example. And even though a lot of insurance companies may not ask it, some of them it will factor in on appeal. Usually on the prior auth side, it's just button clicking, it's yes or no, and that's about as much thought as it goes into it. But some of the smaller plans or on appeals, if it goes to doctors or pharmacists that are actually trying to save their clients money, they will factor that in, and very often it will cause it to be approved because that's just the way the mathematics work. And to be honest, if you're willing to include this hospitalization risk, they ought to be sending you a check because you're doing them a service. Lastly, other drugs are almost never asked for. It's usually a mistake when someone denies it for alternatives. It's usually a Medicaid plan where it's not on the formulary and there's no clear list of what those alternatives are supposed to be. But it's about 1 in 500 requests that this will be asked for. And as I'm sure you're well aware, These are not going to be recommended per guidelines to be used ahead of an ARB or ACE, and that's the reason they're almost never asked for. It's pretty much never worth including unless it just happens to get sent in with whatever other documents that you're sending with the request. I hope you found this information helpful. If you need assistance with your Edarbi or Edarbyclor authorization requests, or if it's too expensive for your patients, or if it's just taking a little bit too much time, we have a very efficient process to deal with these requests. If you'd like more information, contact us online, by email, or by phone, and we'll be happy to take care of these requests for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.